Listen closely. Right now your life is loading. While loading you may sense uncertainty. Why am I uncertain? Why do I feeling as if I need to do something? Do more. This is because your mind is demanding proof before alignment. This audiobook exists to rewire that reflex. Because the truth is this. Reality does not respond to effort first. It responds to belief held without evidence. Every breakthrough you admire, every success you envy, every transformation that seems lucky, was built in the unseen long before it appeared in form. When you learn to stay aligned before results appear, life reorganizes itself around you. Doors open without force. People respond without explanation. Opportunities arrive without warning. This is not hope. This is not blind faith. This is law. And over the next few hours, you will train your mind to trust what you cannot yet see, so that what you do see has no choice but to change. Stay with me. Your future is already listening. Welcome to a chapter a day. Chapter 1. Trust the unseen or stay where you are. Let's start with the truth most people never want to hear. You cannot manifest what you do not trust. Not partially. Not eventually. Not after you see a sign. If you do not trust what you cannot yet see, you will unconsciously sabotage it. And that's the key. Doubt is not neutral. Doubt is active resistance. Most people believe doubt is harmless. They think, I'll just stay cautious. I'll believe it when I see it. I'll trust it once I have proof. But reality does not respond to caution. Reality responds to alignment. And alignment requires trust in the unseen. Right now, as you listen to this, something in your life is forming beneath the surface. An opportunity, a shift, a breakthrough. You cannot see it yet. And that makes your mind uncomfortable. So the mind does what it always does. It questions. It rushes. It pulls you out of alignment. That's where most people fail. Not because they weren't capable. Not because the goal wasn't meant for them, but because they demanded visibility too soon. If I can't see it yet, it doesn't mean it's not working. Say that again internally. If I can't see it yet, it doesn't mean it's not working. That phrase alone can change your life. Because the moment you stop trusting, you stop transmitting consistency. And the moment consistency breaks, reality stops reorganizing. Stay aligned. Let's talk about how this shows up in the real world. Think about how people abandon goals. They start strong, motivated, focused, certain. Then comes the quiet phase. No feedback, no validation, no immediate results. The gym doesn't change their body fast enough. The business doesn't grow fast enough. The relationship doesn't deepen fast enough. The manifestation doesn't appear fast enough. So they assume nothing is happening. And that assumption is fatal. Because momentum becomes invisible before it becomes undeniable. That's the phase where everything is actually working. But they don't trust the unseen. So they stop showing up. They stop believing. They stop acting aligned. And then they say, see? It didn't work. No. They stopped working. Trust the unseen or stay where you are. That's not motivation. That's law. A seed does not panic because the soil looks empty. Roots grow in darkness. Growth happens where you cannot see. And you are no different. If you quit when progress goes quiet, you cancel the process. That's the key. If I can't see it yet, it doesn't mean it's not working. Trust in the unseen and stay aligned. The path will reveal itself the more you align. Now let's get practical. What does trusting the unseen actually require from you? First, stop checking. Stop checking for signs. Stop checking results daily. Stop scanning reality for reassurance. That behavior tells life you don't trust it. And life mirrors that back as delay. Trust the unseen. Second, act as if alignment is already enough. Your job is not to force outcomes. Your job is to maintain internal consistency. Show up the same way on days when nothing happens. Speak the same way. Move the same way. Decide the same way. That's discipline. It's about discipline. Discipline of thought. Discipline of emotion. Discipline of identity. Alignment is not emotional excitement. Alignment is calm certainty without evidence. Most people wait to feel confident before they commit. Aligned people commit before confidence arrives. That's the difference. Stay aligned. Here's another truth most people miss. Reality tests trust before it rewards it. There will always be a moment where nothing seems to respond. That moment is not punishment. It's confirmation. Life is asking, do you still believe without proof? And your answer determines what happens next. If you pull back, life pulls back. If you stay aligned, life accelerates. That's the key. So when doubt appears, and it will, do not fight it emotionally. Override it behaviorally. Continue the routine. Continue the belief language. Continue the identity. Say it again. If I can't see it yet, it doesn't mean it's not working. Trust the unseen. Let me be clear. This chapter is not asking you to pretend. It's asking you to decide. Decision comes before evidence. Once you decide, your job is simple. Protect alignment. Eliminate contradiction. Remain steady. That steadiness is what bends reality. And here's the paradox. The less you chase proof, the faster proof arrives. The less you demand reassurance, the more reassurance appears. The less you panic, the faster things move. Because trust removes friction. That's the key. Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They failed because they couldn't sit in uncertainty without self-sabotage. You are training that muscle now. Trust in the unseen and stay aligned. The path will reveal itself the more you align. Let this chapter land, because everything that follows builds on this foundation. If you cannot trust without seeing, manifestation collapses. If you cannot remain aligned in silence, progress resets. So decide now. You will trust the unseen. You will stay aligned. You will not abandon yourself in the quiet. That is how movement becomes inevitable. You've learned how to stop canceling your own momentum. Now it's time to understand why proof always comes after belief. You've anchored trust. Now let's deepen it. Chapter 2, Proof Comes After Belief, Never Before. Here is the trap the mind falls into every time. It says, show me first, then I'll believe. That sounds reasonable, logical, safe, and it is completely backwards. Because reality does not reward logic. Reality rewards conviction. The mind is addicted to evidence. It wants confirmation. It wants reassurance. It wants signs, numbers, messages, results. But alignment does not work that way. Belief is not a reaction to proof. Belief is the cause of proof. That's the key. Most people think belief is something you earn once things start working. But belief is something you decide before anything moves. Belief first, evidence later. Say it again. Belief first, evidence later. If you reverse that order, you stay stuck. Because the moment you say, I'll believe it when I see it, you have told reality you are not ready. Stay aligned. Let's talk about what's really happening here. The mind wants guarantees because it fears disappointment. It wants safety. It wants control. But transformation requires uncertainty. Every meaningful upgrade in your life demands that you move before you feel ready. That applies to success. That applies to healing. That applies to confidence. That applies to manifestation. You never get proof before the leap. And yet, this is where most people freeze. They wait. They wait for motivation. They wait for certainty. They wait for clarity. They wait for permission. And while they wait, nothing changes. Not because nothing could change, but because belief hasn't been activated. Belief first, evidence later. Now let's ground this in reality. Think about stories of sudden success. The artist who blew up overnight. The entrepreneur who got lucky. The person who suddenly found confidence, love, or freedom. What you don't see is the silent period, the months, the years, the repetition without applause, the effort without validation, the belief that stayed intact when nothing responded. That's the part most people skip, because silence feels like failure to the untrained mind. But silence is not absence. Silence is accumulation. That's the key. Every breakthrough you admire was preceded by a long stretch where nothing seemed to work. No feedback, no external reward, no visible momentum. Just belief. Belief first, evidence later. Those people didn't succeed because they were special. They succeeded because they didn't withdraw belief during the quiet phase. They stayed aligned. And that is the discipline you are building now. It's about discipline. Discipline of belief. Discipline of consistency. Discipline of internal certainty. Let me say this clearly. If you only believe when things go well, you don't actually believe. You're just reacting. Belief means staying steady when nothing changes. Trust the unseen. The moment you demand proof, you introduce doubt. And doubt fractures alignment. That's why impatience delays results. That's why overthinking blocks flow. That's why checking cancels momentum. Because belief cannot coexist with constant verification. Stay aligned. Now here's where this becomes practical. What do you do when the mind starts asking for proof? You don't argue with it. You don't suppress it. You override it. You respond with action. You continue the habit. You continue the routine. You continue the identity. You do not wait for motivation. You move because you decided. That's the key. Belief is behavioral before it is emotional. Aligned people don't feel confident all the time. They move confidently anyway. They understand something most people don't. Evidence is delayed feedback. Reality needs time to rearrange itself. When you change internally, the external world lags behind. And that delay is where belief is tested. Belief first, evidence later. Say it again. Belief first, evidence later. If you can hold that line, everything changes. Now let's talk about why belief must come first. Because belief sends a clear signal. It says, I trust the process. I am committed. I am stable. And stability is magnetic. Reality organizes around what is consistent. If your belief fluctuates daily, results fluctuate too. If your commitment weakens under pressure, outcomes stall. That's not punishment. That's reflection. Trust the unseen. There will be moments where it feels foolish to keep going. Moments where stopping would feel easier. Moments where doubt sounds logical. Those moments are checkpoints. They separate those who wait from those who become. And you already know which side you're choosing. Stay aligned. Here's a reframe that changes everything. Instead of asking, why hasn't it happened yet? Ask, am I still being the person who believes? That's the only question that matters. Because once belief stabilizes, evidence has no choice but to follow. It may not arrive how you expect. It may not arrive when you expect. But it will arrive. That's law. Belief first. Evidence later. Let this chapter settle in. You are learning how to stop negotiating with doubt. You are learning how to move without guarantees. You are learning how to hold conviction when nothing responds. That is the skill behind every transformation. You've learned that trust is required before results. Now it's time to understand what happens when everything goes quiet. You've mastered belief without proof. Now let's talk about the silence that tests it. Chapter 3. The silence is not a sign of failure. There will come a moment when everything goes quiet. No feedback. No movement. No visible response. And this is where most people decide something is wrong. They say, nothing's happening. They say, I must be off track. They say, this isn't working. But silence is not a sign of failure. Silence is preparation, not punishment. That's the key. The unseen phase is not empty. It is active. It is the phase where identity shifts before outcomes do. Because outcomes do not change first. You change first. Reality waits for consistency, and silence is the test of that consistency. Stay aligned. Think about nature. Nothing grows on command. Nothing blooms immediately. Nothing breaks through the soil the moment the seed is planted. The most important work happens underground. Roots spread in darkness. Structures form in silence. Strength develops without applause. And then suddenly life appears. But only to those who waited. Only to those who trusted the unseen. Only to those who stayed aligned when nothing responded. Silence is preparation, not punishment. Say it again. Silence is preparation, not punishment. If you misinterpret silence, you self-sabotage. You change direction too early. You quit before momentum becomes visible. You assume the absence of feedback is the absence of progress. And that assumption collapses alignment. That's the key. The silence is where identity rewires. This is the phase where you stop being someone who tries and become someone who expects. But expectation without evidence is uncomfortable. That's why the silence feels heavy. Because your old identity wants reassurance. Your new identity requires trust. Trust the unseen. Most people never reach this phase consciously. They abandon the process before identity stabilizes. They don't fail at outcomes. They fail at waiting. And waiting is not passive. Waiting is disciplined alignment. It's about discipline. Discipline of staying calm when nothing changes. Discipline of maintaining belief when emotions fluctuate. Discipline of continuing routines without reward. That discipline is what builds the new version of you. And once identity locks in, outcomes follow automatically. Belief first. Evidence later. Now let's look at how people misread silence. They check constantly. They overthink. They ask others for opinions. They compare timelines. All of that noise disrupts the internal shift happening. Silence requires stillness. Stillness allows integration. If you interrupt the process, you delay the result. Stay aligned. Here's a powerful reframe. Silence is not the absence of movement. Silence is movement without visibility. Reality is rearranging behind the scenes. People are being positioned. Events are lining up. Circumstances are shifting. But none of that needs your supervision. Your only role is alignment. Trust the unseen. Let the seed do what seeds do. Because no seed digs itself up to check if it's growing. Only insecure ones do. And insecure seeds never bloom. Silence is preparation, not punishment. This is where patience becomes power. Not passive patience. Confident patience. The kind that says, I know what I planted. The kind that doesn't panic when nothing breaks the surface. The kind that stays aligned even when the mind starts whispering doubt. That's the key. Let me be clear. If everything feels quiet right now, that is not a warning sign. It's confirmation. It means the work has moved internal. It means the shift is happening at the root. And roots must be strong before anything can rise. Trust the unseen. Now here's what you do during the silence. You do not rush. You do not force. You do not change the plan. You refine. You stabilize routines. You clean up self-talk. You reinforce belief language. You become emotionally steady. That steadiness is what completes the identity shift. And once identity changes, outcomes chase it. That's law. Silence is preparation, not punishment. Say it again. Silence is preparation, not punishment. If you can stay aligned here, you will not need motivation later. Because momentum will carry you. Most people never experience that momentum because they quit during the quiet. You won't. You're learning how to sit in the unseen without self-destructing. That's mastery. You've learned how to trust without proof. You've learned how to believe without feedback. Now you understand the purpose of silence. And once you stop fearing the quiet, something else happens. You stop clinging. You stop forcing. You start allowing. Which leads us to the next level. You've survived the silence. Now it's time to release control. Chapter 4. Detachment is the highest form of trust. There is a point in every transformation where effort stops helping, where pushing harder does nothing, where thinking more only creates noise, where trying to control the outcome actually slows it down. That point is where detachment begins. And detachment is not giving up. Detachment is trusting so deeply that you no longer interfere. That's the key. Clinging blocks flow. Allowing accelerates it. Most people misunderstand detachment. They think detachment means not caring. They think it means lowering standards. They think it means walking away. That's not detachment. Detachment means releasing the need to control how it happens. Say it clearly. I release the need to control the how. Again, I release the need to control the how. The moment you stop gripping the outcome, reality can move. Because control sends one message. I don't trust this. And trust sends another. I'm ready. Reality responds to readiness. Stay aligned. Let's talk about where people get stuck. They visualize. They affirm. They believe. And then they choke the process by obsessing. They replay timelines. They force conversations. They overanalyze signs. They try to micromanage the universe. And the more they cling, the more resistance they create. That's the paradox. The harder you squeeze, the slower things move. Clinging blocks flow. Detachment opens it. That's the key. Think about relationships. How often does love arrive when someone is chasing it? Rarely. Love shows up when someone stops trying to extract it and starts being whole without it. That's detachment. Careers work the same way. People obsess over promotions. They attach their worth to titles. They panic about timing. And then suddenly, after they stop forcing, the right role appears. The call comes in. The opportunity finds them. Money works the same way. Scarcity thinking repels it. Desperation blocks it. Gripping it tightly suffocates flow. But when someone releases fear and controls their inner state, money responds. Not because they stopped wanting it, but because they stopped needing it to feel safe. That's detachment. I release the need to control the how. Detachment tells reality. I trust you to do your part while I do mine. Your part is alignment, not force, not pressure, not anxiety. Alignment. It's about discipline. Discipline of letting go. Discipline of emotional neutrality. Discipline of staying steady even when outcomes feel close. Most people fall apart right before breakthroughs because attachment peaks. They sense it's near. They get excited. They start gripping. And grip creates friction. Trust the unseen. Detachment is not passive. You still show up. You still take aligned action. You still move forward. But you stop hovering over the result. You plant the seed. You water it. And then you step back. Because seeds don't grow faster when watched. They grow when left alone. Clinging blocks flow. Allowing accelerates it. Say it again. I release the need to control the how. Here's how detachment shows up behaviorally. You stop rushing conversations. You stop forcing decisions. You stop chasing validation. You respond instead of react. You act when it feels aligned, not when fear demands movement. That calm is magnetic. That calm is power. That calm tells reality. I'm stable enough to receive. And stability is what unlocks flow. That's the key. Most people are not blocked by lack of desire. They are blocked by excess attachment. They want too hard. They need too much. They grip too tightly. And that tension repels what they're asking for. Detachment dissolves tension. Trust dissolves resistance. Stay aligned. Let me give you a simple reframe. Attachment asks, why isn't it here yet? Detachment says, it's coming. I'll live now. Attachment watches the clock. Detachment trusts timing. Attachment panics in silence. Detachment rests in it. And guess which one reality responds to faster? Detachment is the highest form of trust, because it says, even without this, I am okay. And that sentence changes everything. When you're okay without it, you're finally ready for it. I release the need to control the how. Say it slowly. I release the need to control the how. This chapter is an invitation to loosen your grip, to unclench your jaw, to soften your nervous system, because flow requires openness, and openness requires trust. Trust the unseen. If you can detach without disconnecting, if you can allow without abandoning desire, if you can stay aligned without forcing outcomes, reality will meet you halfway. Every time. You've learned how to trust without proof. You've learned how to stay steady in silence. Now you're learning how to let go without giving up. And that leads to the next truth. Because even detachment has a signal. And that signal is emotional state. You've released control. Now it's time to master what you're broadcasting. Chapter 5. Your emotional state is the signal. Here is a truth that changes everything once you really hear it. Reality does not respond to how badly you want something. Reality responds to how consistently you feel. That's the key. Desire is loud. Emotion is constant. And reality mirrors consistency. Most people believe intensity creates results. They think passion, urgency, and obsession move life faster. They don't. They create noise. Reality doesn't reorganize around spikes. It reorganizes around stability. Your emotional state is the signal. Stay aligned. Think about this carefully. You can want something deeply, but if your dominant emotional state is anxiety, frustration, or lack, that's what you're transmitting. And reality responds honestly, not to what you say you want, but to how you are. That's the key. Reality mirrors emotional consistency, not desire intensity. This is where many people get confused. They affirm during high moments, but collapse emotionally when nothing happens. They feel hopeful one day, then discouraged the next. And that emotional fluctuation sends mixed signals. Mixed signals produce mixed results. Trust the unseen. Alignment is not about excitement. Alignment is about calm certainty. Calm is powerful. Calm is stable. Calm tells reality, I'm safe. I'm ready. I'm grounded. Anxious hope does the opposite. Anxious hope says, I need this to feel okay. And need creates resistance. That's the key. So let's get practical. What emotional state are you practicing daily? Not occasionally. Daily. Because whatever you rehearse becomes your signal. If you rehearse stress, reality reflects pressure. If you rehearse peace, reality reflects flow. If you rehearse certainty, reality organizes accordingly. I feel now how I expect to live later. Say it again. I feel now how I expect to live later. That sentence rewires alignment, because it removes waiting. Most people postpone their emotional state. They say, I'll relax when it works. I'll feel confident when it shows up. I'll be happy when it arrives. But that reverses the order. Emotion first. Outcome later. Belief first. Evidence later. Stay aligned. Aligned people don't wait for life to give permission to feel good. They decide. They choose calm even when nothing has changed. They choose steadiness even when uncertainty exists. They choose trust even when the mind demands proof. That choice is power. That choice is discipline. It's about discipline. Discipline of emotional regulation. Discipline of inner environment. Discipline of not letting circumstances hijack your state. Because your emotional state is your broadcast. And reality is always listening. Trust the unseen. Here's an important distinction. Calm certainty is not pretending. It's not suppressing fear. It's not forcing positivity. It's allowing emotions to pass without identifying with them. You can feel doubt and still choose alignment. You can notice fear and still act calmly. You are not required to feel perfect. You are required to stay consistent. That's the key. Consistency beats intensity every time. A steady signal reshapes reality faster than emotional highs and lows. That's why some people manifest effortlessly. Not because they want more, but because they wobble less. They remain emotionally coherent. They feel now how they expect to live later. Say it again. I feel now how I expect to live later. Let this sink in. If the life you want feels calm, start practicing calm. If the life you want feels secure, start practicing security. If the life you want feels free, start practicing freedom internally. Because waiting keeps you misaligned. Stay aligned. Here's a behavioral shift you can make immediately. When anxiety shows up, slow down. Lower your pace. Soften your breathing. Because speed amplifies fear. Calm dissolves it. When impatience appears, pause. Remind yourself that timing is adjusting, not failing. When doubt speaks, respond with steadiness, not arguments. You don't convince doubt. You outgrow it. That's the key. Your nervous system must match the future you're calling in. If your body is always braced, reality reads that as danger. If your body is relaxed, reality opens. Flow requires safety, and safety begins internally. Trust the unseen. Let me be clear. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you consistently are. If you are tense, you attract tension. If you are rushed, you attract pressure. If you are calm, you attract solutions. That's not spiritual theory. That's reflection. Reality mirrors emotional consistency. Say it again. Reality mirrors emotional consistency, not desire intensity. This chapter is about emotional leadership. You lead your inner state first. And when you do, life follows. Not immediately, not dramatically, but inevitably. Because stable signals create stable outcomes. I feel now how I expect to live later. Hold that. Live from that. Breathe from that. You've learned how to trust the unseen. You've learned how to survive silence. You've learned how to detach without giving up. Now you understand what you're broadcasting every moment. And that leads to the next truth. Because once emotion stabilizes, something else becomes clear. Results don't come from effort alone. They come from who you're being. You've mastered the signal. Now it's time to master identity. Chapter 6. Identity creates results, not effort. This is where most people exhaust themselves. They try harder. They push more. They force action. And nothing changes. Not because effort is bad, but because effort without alignment is noise. Here is the truth that collapses struggle. You do not attract what you want. You attract who you are being. That's the key. Reality doesn't respond to effort alone. It responds to identity. Most people are doing the right actions from the wrong internal position. They're acting from fear, from lack, from urgency. And urgency signals misalignment. Stay aligned. Look around. You'll see people working endlessly, grinding, hustling, sacrificing, yet they stay stuck. Same income, same relationships, same patterns. Why? Because they are working as the same version of themselves. Action doesn't upgrade life. Identity does. And identity expresses itself through action. Trust the unseen. Here's how misalignment shows up. Someone wants success, but acts like someone trying to escape failure. Someone wants love, but behaves like someone afraid of abandonment. Someone wants freedom, but moves like someone who doesn't trust themselves. Same goals, wrong identity, and reality mirrors identity. That's the key. Aligned people don't do more. They do things differently, not because they're smarter, but because they're grounded. They act from alignment, not desperation. Say it again. I act from alignment, not desperation. Desperation is loud. Alignment is calm. Desperation rushes. Alignment waits. Desperation asks, is this working yet? Alignment says, I know who I am. And that difference changes outcomes. Stay aligned. Let's talk about effort. Effort is not the enemy. Misplaced effort is. Effort fueled by fear creates burnout. Effort fueled by alignment creates momentum. The same action taken from two identities produces two different results. Because reality reads the signal behind the behavior. That's the key. Here's an example. Two people apply for the same opportunity. One is internally stable. They expect respect. They trust their value. The other is anxious. They need validation. They fear rejection. Same resume. Same words. Different energy. And energy always wins. Trust the unseen. Your internal posture matters more than your external strategy. That's why copying someone else's actions rarely works. Because you're copying behavior without identity. Identity must come first. Belief first. Evidence later. Identity first. Results follow. Stay aligned. So what do you do with this? You stop asking, what should I do next? And start asking, who am I being while I do this? That question changes everything. Because aligned identity moves differently. Aligned identity doesn't chase. It doesn't over-explain. It doesn't overextend. It chooses deliberately. That's discipline. It's about discipline. Discipline of self-image. Discipline of emotional posture. Discipline of not slipping back into old roles under pressure. Most people regress when uncertainty appears. They revert to the old identity. They panic. They overwork. They self-abandon. And the cycle repeats. You're breaking that cycle. I act from alignment, not desperation. Say it again. I act from alignment, not desperation. This chapter is about being before doing. Because doing without being creates friction. But being aligned makes action effortless. When identity locks in, effort decreases and results increase. That's not luck. That's coherence. Trust the unseen. Here's a practical shift you can make immediately. Before you act, pause. Ask yourself, is this coming from trust or fear? If it's fear, wait. If it's trust, move. That pause protects alignment. That pause preserves identity. That pause accelerates outcomes. Stay aligned. Aligned people don't force doors. They position themselves so doors open. They don't beg for opportunities. They become obvious choices. They don't exhaust themselves proving worth. They embody it. That embodiment is identity. That's the key. Let me say this clearly. You cannot outwork a misaligned identity. You cannot hustle your way into coherence. You cannot grind your way into trust. Identity must shift first. And identity shifts through repetition, through calm decisions, through aligned behavior, through refusing to act from desperation. I act from alignment, not desperation. Hold that line. Live from that place. You've learned how to regulate emotion. You've learned how to detach. You've learned how to trust the unseen. Now you're learning how to be the version that receives. And once identity stabilizes, something interesting happens. You stop fighting time. You stop rushing outcomes. You understand delays differently. Which brings us to the next truth. Because time is not working against you. It's refining you. You've anchored identity. Now let's reframe delay. Chapter 7. Time delay is a feature, not a flaw. Here is where impatience quietly sabotages everything. People see delay and assume something is wrong. They say, it's taking too long. They say, I'm falling behind. They say, this should have happened by now. But delay is not denial. Delay is design. That's the key. Time delay is not a flaw in the system. It is the system. Reality does not deliver what you ask for the moment you ask for it. It delivers what you are prepared to sustain. Everything arrives when I am ready to hold it. Say it again. Everything arrives when I am ready to hold it. Most people want outcomes faster than they are ready to live them. They want success without structure, money without regulation, love without security, freedom without responsibility. And when those things arrive too soon, they collapse. That's why rushed manifestations fall apart. They weren't failures. They were premature. Trust the unseen. Think about it. How many times have you gotten something you wanted, only to lose it just as quickly? A relationship that burned bright and ended fast. A job that looked perfect and drained you. Money that arrived suddenly and disappeared. That wasn't bad luck. That was readiness mismatch. The container wasn't strong enough yet. Delay strengthens the container. That's the key. Time is not stalling you. Time is refining you. It's sharpening clarity, building discipline, deepening self-trust. Those qualities are invisible until they aren't. Stay aligned. Here's what delay actually does. It removes fantasy. It tests commitment. It exposes weak identity. Delay asks one question repeatedly. Will you stay aligned without reward? And your answer determines everything. Most people interpret delay as rejection. So they panic. They rush. They force. And forcing collapses alignment. Clinging blocks flow. Allowing accelerates it. Delay invites allowing. Trust the unseen. When you rush manifestation, you skip integration. You get the outcome, but you don't know how to hold it. And anything you can't hold will slip. That's the key. Delay teaches patience without passivity. Patience that continues to act. Patience that stays disciplined. Patience that doesn't emotionally spiral. That kind of patience is power. Everything arrives when I am ready to hold it. Say it again. Everything arrives when I am ready to hold it. This chapter is about reframing time. Time is not your enemy. Time is your ally. It's giving you space to become. Become calmer. Become steadier. Become clearer. Because once you become those things, results stabilize. Stay aligned. Let me be very clear. Fast results feel good. Sustainable results change lives. Reality prioritizes sustainability. That's why it slows you down. Not to frustrate you. To fortify you. Trust the unseen. If things feel slow right now, ask yourself, what is being built in me? Because something always is. Confidence. Emotional regulation. Self-respect. Discernment. Those upgrades don't show up on timelines, but they determine everything. That's the key. Here's what you do during delay. You don't wait emotionally. You prepare structurally. You refine routines. You stabilize habits. You clean up internal dialogue. You act as if the future version of you is already rehearsing. That's alignment. I act from alignment, not desperation. Delay exposes desperation. Alignment calms it. Stay aligned. Here's a powerful shift. Instead of saying, why is this taking so long? Say, what am I becoming while I wait? That question turns delay into momentum. Because when you focus on becoming, arrival accelerates naturally. Everything arrives when I am ready to hold it. Hold that. Live by that. Trust the timing you can't yet see. You've learned how to regulate emotion. You've learned how to embody identity. You've learned how to trust silence and release control. Now you understand why time bends differently when alignment is strong. And this leads to the next truth. Because readiness is not accidental. It's trained. Faith itself is a skill. You've reframed delay. Now it's time to build trust deliberately. Chapter 8. Faith is a muscle you train daily. Most people misunderstand faith. They think faith is a feeling. They think it appears when things go well. They think it disappears when things get hard. That's not faith. That's mood. Faith is not emotional. Faith is trained. That's the key. Trust does not strengthen because you feel inspired. Trust strengthens because you practice it, especially when you don't feel inspired. Faith is a muscle. And like any muscle, it grows through repetition, not intensity. Stay aligned. If you only trust when you feel good, your trust is weak. If you only believe when evidence appears, your belief collapses under pressure. Real faith holds during uncertainty. Trust the unseen. Every day gives you opportunities to train it. Small moments. quiet moments, uncomfortable moments. Those are not interruptions. They are reps. I practice trust even when I feel uncertain. Say it again. I practice trust even when I feel uncertain. This chapter is about discipline. It's about discipline, not discipline of force, discipline of repetition. You don't wait for faith to show up. You show up for faith, and faith responds. That's the key. Let's talk about how people weaken trust without realizing it. They rehearse doubt internally. They replay worst-case scenarios. They speak uncertainty out loud. And repetition works both ways. What you repeat, you reinforce. If you repeat fear, fear strengthens. If you repeat trust, trust stabilizes. Reality responds to what's stabilized. Stay aligned. So let's get practical. Here are the daily practices that train faith. First, internal dialogue. Your inner voice is either training trust or training doubt. There is no neutral conversation. When your mind asks, "What if this fails?" you respond, "I trust the process." Not emotionally, matter-of-factly. That repetition builds certainty. Second, affirmations. Not emotional affirmations. Grounded ones. Simple, calm, consistent. I am aligned. I am supported. I stay steady even when I don't know. Say them daily. Not to convince yourself, to condition yourself. That's the key. Third, visualization. Not fantasy. Rehearsal. You don't visualize outcomes. You visualize being calm while they unfold. See yourself grounded, centered, stable, because the nervous system needs rehearsal. Trust the unseen. Visualization teaches your body what safety feels like before results arrive. And once safety is familiar, reality accelerates. Flow requires safety. That's the key. Fourth, behavior. Faith is proven through action, not dramatic action. Aligned action. You keep routines even when motivation dips. You honor commitments even when nothing responds. You choose steadiness when doubt tempts reaction. That's training. I practice trust even when I feel uncertain. Say it again. I practice trust even when I feel uncertain. Most people think faith should feel powerful. It doesn't. It feels quiet. It feels boring sometimes. It feels uneventful. It feels stable. And stability is magnetic. Reality does not respond to emotional fireworks. It responds to consistency. Trust the unseen. Here's a powerful reframe. Every time you stay aligned under uncertainty, you win, even if nothing changes externally, because you're strengthening the muscle that bends reality later. Faith compounds, just like habits, just like skills, just like confidence. No single moment proves it, but one day you notice something. You're calmer. You're less reactive. You're no longer chasing signs. That's faith. That's the shift. Stay aligned. Let me say this clearly. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your training. And faith must be trained. Daily. Without drama. Without force. Without expectation. Belief first. Evidence later. That's the order. Trust the unseen. Here's what weak faith looks like. Only believing when things move. Only trusting when results appear. Only staying aligned when it's easy. That's not trust. Strong faith stays when nothing responds. Strong faith is boring, calm, and unshakable. That's the key. So stop asking, "Do I feel faithful?" Ask instead, "Did I practice today?" Because practice builds strength. I practice trust even when I feel uncertain. Hold that. Repeat it. Live by it. You've learned how to trust the unseen. You've learned how to regulate emotion. You've learned how to embody identity and respect timing. Now you're training the muscle that makes all of that automatic. And once faith becomes stable, something changes. You stop waiting. You stop asking when. You start moving as if it's inevitable. You've trained belief. Now it's time to embody certainty. Chapter 9. Stop asking when and start acting as if. Here is the question that quietly keeps people stuck. When? When will it happen? When will it change? When will I see results? That single word puts your life on pause. Because when is a waiting posture, and waiting is misalignment. That's the key. Asking when keeps your energy in the future. Acting as if brings your energy into the present. And reality only responds to the present. Stay aligned. When says, I don't have it yet. As if says, I'm already becoming. Those two positions produce very different outcomes. Trust the unseen. Most people don't realize this. They say they believe, but their behavior says they're waiting. They delay decisions. They hold back confidence. They postpone identity. They tell themselves, I'll act differently once it happens. That's backwards. Belief first. Evidence later. Identity first. Results follow. That's the key. Acting as if is not pretending. It's alignment. It means you move the way you would move if certainty was already settled. I move as the version of me who already knows. Say it again. I move as the version of me who already knows. Look at how embodiment works in real life. Confidence doesn't appear after success. Confidence creates success. People don't wait to feel confident before speaking clearly. They speak clearly, and confidence catches up. Respect doesn't come after self-worth. It follows it. Opportunities don't show up after permission. They show up after posture. That posture is as if. Stay aligned. Think about someone who is becoming healthier. They don't say, when I'm fit, I'll act disciplined. They act disciplined first. Think about someone building a career. They don't say, when I'm successful, I'll take myself seriously. They take themselves seriously first. Think about someone healing emotionally. They don't say, when I'm healed, I'll set boundaries. They set boundaries first. Embodiment precedes validation. That's the key. Acting as if trains identity. It tells your nervous system, this is normal now. And once something feels normal internally, reality adjusts externally. Trust the unseen. Here's where people get confused. They think acting as if means reckless confidence. It doesn't. It means calm certainty. Not loud. Not performative. Not rushed. Calm. Aligned people don't announce their faith. They demonstrate it quietly. I move as the version of me who already knows. Say it again. I move as the version of me who already knows. Here's a simple test. Before any decision, ask yourself, how would I move if I trusted this was unfolding? Then do that. Not dramatically. Not urgently. Steadily. That's alignment. It's about discipline. Discipline of posture. Discipline of decision-making. Discipline of not collapsing back into waiting. Waiting weakens identity. Movement strengthens it. Stay aligned. Here's another truth. As if doesn't mean outcomes appear instantly. It means you stop leaking energy into doubt. It means you stop scanning reality for confirmation. It means you stop postponing your life. And that frees momentum. That's the key. When you act as if, something subtle shifts. You stop chasing. You stop asking. You stop explaining. You become grounded. And grounded people attract. Trust the unseen. This is why some people seem to manifest effortlessly. They don't hover over outcomes. They don't negotiate with doubt. They decide. And then they move accordingly. I move as the version of me who already knows. Let this become your internal posture. Not arrogance. Not denial. Certainty. Certainty without force. Certainty without urgency. Certainty without proof. That's real faith. Belief first. Evidence later. Stay aligned. This chapter is about reclaiming the present. Because life does not reward waiting. It rewards embodiment. The moment you stop asking, when? You stop resisting now. And now is where alignment lives. You've learned how to trust. You've learned how to detach. You've learned how to stabilize emotion and identity. Now you're learning how to move without hesitation. And that leads to the next truth. Because once you move as if, consistency becomes everything. Not excitement. Not motivation. Consistency. You've stepped into embodiment. Now let's talk about what reality truly responds to. Chapter 10. The universe responds to consistency. Here is the principle most people overlook. The universe doesn't respond to flashes of belief. It responds to steady alignment. Consistency is the hidden engine of manifestation. That's the key. Inconsistent belief produces inconsistent outcomes. One day you feel certain. One day you panic. One day you show up aligned. The next day you doubt yourself. And what happens? Results flicker. Opportunities appear, then vanish. Momentum slips through your fingers. That's why some manifestations never stabilize. They are half-believed, half-lived, half-practiced. Stay aligned. Consistency is not dramatic. It is quiet. It is persistent. It is boring sometimes. But it is invisible power. Trust the unseen. Here's the truth. Reality is a mirror. And mirrors reflect patterns, not intentions. If your alignment wavers, reality wavers. If your trust wavers, results waver. If your emotional state wavers, life wavers. The universe does not negotiate with excuses. It responds to rhythm. It responds to discipline. It responds to repeated alignment over time. I remain aligned regardless of circumstances. Say it again. I remain aligned regardless of circumstances. Most people think consistency is external. They think it's doing the same actions over and over. That is incomplete. True consistency is internal. It is unwavering mindset. It is calm emotional posture. It is steadfast identity. Even when the world fluctuates, you do not. Even when nothing is happening, you do not. Even when fear whispers, you do not. That is alignment. Trust the unseen. Let me give you an example. Two people start a project. Both want the same outcome. One moves erratically, motivated one day, doubting the next, stopping and starting. The other remains aligned, taking steady action, practicing trust, regulating emotion. Months later, only the second sees results that last. The first may get glimpses, but nothing stable. Why? Because the universe reflects repetition, not intensity. Intensity fades. Consistency compounds. That's the key. Here's what it looks like behaviorally. You act aligned even when signs are absent. You stay steady when fear rises. You hold your posture even when doubt tempts. You do not negotiate with every shifting circumstance. You remain aligned. I remain aligned regardless of circumstances. Say it again. I remain aligned regardless of circumstances. Consistency trains reality. It builds a container capable of receiving. It proves your readiness. It signals, I am reliable. I am steady. I am prepared. Trust the unseen. This is why results often arrive suddenly after long periods. Not because the universe changed. Because you did. You practiced daily. You held alignment through the storms. You repeated trust until it became automatic. That repetition is invisible to others, but it is undeniable to reality. Stay aligned. Let me make this very practical. When circumstances are chaotic, breathe. When people doubt you, stay steady. When progress seems slow, act as if it is inevitable. Do not chase alignment. Do not negotiate with consistency. Do not wait for certainty to appear externally. Hold it internally. I remain aligned regardless of circumstances. This chapter is about mastering rhythm. Not intensity. Not drama. Not emotion. Rhythm. Repetition. Alignment. That is the energy the universe respects. That is the frequency results respond to. That is how momentum stabilizes. Everything else is noise. Everything else flickers. Consistency is invisible, steady, quiet, relentless. It is faith in motion. It is trust expressed through discipline. Stay aligned. You've learned how to act as if. You've learned how to embody identity. You've learned how to regulate your nervous system. Now you've learned how to stabilize reality. And once alignment is consistent, something else emerges, clarity. Because when you remain steady, your intuition sharpens. Your choices become effortless. Your life reorganizes itself. That leads to the next truth. Because consistency alone is powerful, but clarity allows mastery. Chapter 11. Let reality catch up to you. Here is the truth most people miss. You are often ahead of your physical environment, ahead of your circumstances, ahead of the people, places, and things around you. That's the key. Energy always moves faster than matter. Your emotional, mental, and spiritual state can leap ahead, long before the physical world shows it. Trust the unseen. Most people try to speed up reality to match their state. They push. They force. They manipulate. And it doesn't work, because reality has its own pace. It needs time to reorganize. It needs to align with the frequency you've already created. You've been practicing alignment. You've been stabilizing faith. You've been moving as if. Now the universe is catching up to you. Reality is adjusting to my decision. Say it again. Reality is adjusting to my decision. Think about this. How often have you changed internally first, only to see external change arrive weeks, months, or even years later? You felt stronger emotionally before opportunities appeared. You felt calmer before situations resolved. You felt ready before anything tangible arrived. That's the invisible principle. You are ahead, and your job is not to force the world to follow. Your job is to maintain your alignment while it catches up. Stay aligned. The impatient mind says, "Why isn't it here yet?" The aligned mind says, "It's coming. I am ready. I am prepared." Your emotional, mental, and behavioral state is the blueprint. Your environment is catching up, not the other way around. Reality is adjusting to my decision. Say it again. Reality is adjusting to my decision. Here's why most manifestations fail at this stage. People act like the world should respond immediately. They get frustrated. They panic. They revert to old patterns. But that impatience cancels alignment. It breaks the invisible connection. It signals doubt. It slows the very momentum they created. Trust the unseen. Let me give you an example. Someone prepares for a promotion. They practice confidence, competence, and leadership internally. They train every skill they will need. But the job itself doesn't appear immediately. Weeks pass. Months pass. Most would assume failure. Most would abandon alignment. But the reality is, the promotion is already energetically ready. It is simply waiting for the timing and external alignment to catch up. And when the person maintains their internal state, the promotion eventually manifests effortlessly. That's the key. You are often ahead. Your internal growth, your clarity, your emotional state, your discipline, they all precede visible evidence. Let reality catch up to you. Do not accelerate with force. Do not second-guess timing. Do not collapse under impatience. Stay aligned. Reality is adjusting to my decision. Repeat it. Live it. Breathe it. Every choice you make now signals the universe. Every emotion you maintain tells reality what to create. Every alignment you hold forms the environment that will eventually reflect it. Your decision is the blueprint. Your patience is the construction team. Your faith is the glue. That's the principle of invisible creation. Here's how to practice it daily. Anchor yourself in your chosen state, regardless of evidence. Reinforce alignment through emotion, posture, and action. Observe external events without trying to rush or control them. This is not passive. This is deliberate patience. This is trust in action. Reality is adjusting to my decision. Say it one more time. Reality is adjusting to my decision. When you internalize this principle, The world becomes a mirror of your consistent alignment. You stop chasing. You stop waiting. You stop reacting. You simply hold your state. And then reality reorganizes itself. That is the bridge to mastery. You've learned to trust. You've learned to stabilize emotion. You've learned identity first, results later. You've learned to remain consistent. Now you see that life always follows energy. Your next step is simple but profound. Because once alignment is complete, manifestation becomes effortless. Which leads us to the final lesson. Chapter 12, Becoming Unshakable in the Unknown. Here is the final truth. Mastery is not when everything works out perfectly. Mastery is not when results appear instantly. Mastery is not when circumstances validate your belief. Mastery is trusting even when nothing changes. Yet, that's the key. You have practiced alignment. You have built faith. You have embodied identity. You have remained consistent. You have let reality catch up. Now comes the ultimate test. The unknown, where nothing is guaranteed, where your senses tell you there is no evidence, where the external world seems indifferent. That is the stage where true power emerges. I trust without proof. I move without fear. Say it again. I trust without proof. I move without fear. Unshakable people are not those who never face uncertainty. They are those who do not collapse under it. They do not panic. They do not overthink. They do not try to control outcomes. They maintain posture. They maintain identity. They maintain alignment. Trust the unseen. Here's how it looks in life. A business owner has launched a project. Sales are slow. Criticism arrives. The world seems indifferent. Most people react with fear. Most people quit, doubt, or chase results. The unshakable person does not. They continue to operate with calm confidence. They honor routines. They refine processes. They trust timing. They act decisively, all without visible proof. I trust without proof. I move without fear. Say it again. I trust without proof. I move without fear. That is the final initiation. This is where alignment becomes unbreakable. This is where manifestation is inevitable. Because the internal state now exists independent of external validation. Your nervous system has been trained. Your identity has been solidified. Your faith has been strengthened. And that unshakable posture signals the universe. Reality cannot resist it. That is the key. Here's what most people fail to see. The moment of uncertainty is always temporary. The moment of discomfort is always the signal of growth. The moment of invisibility is always the precursor to manifestation. Do not flee it. Do not fight it. Do not pretend it isn't there. Stay steady. Stay aligned. Stay unshakable. I trust without proof. I move without fear. That is the rhythm of true creation. You have been learning for hours now. You have learned to trust the unseen, believe before evidence, detach from outcomes, stabilize emotional states, build identity that attracts results, embrace delay as a feature, practice faith daily, move as if, remain consistent, let reality catch up. All of these steps converge here. The unknown is no longer frightening. It is neutral. It is a canvas. It is the final test. The unshakable do not wait. They do not plead. They do not hope. They act from alignment. They embody certainty. They hold faith in motion. And because they do, life reorganizes around them. I trust without proof. I move without fear. Repeat it. Own it. Live it. This is your transformation. Your inner state now governs outcomes. Your decisions now shape reality. Your alignment now magnetizes results. Nothing outside of you can shake this. The unknown becomes your ally. Silence becomes your teacher. Delay becomes your refinement. Everything you've learned leads to this. You are unshakable. You are steady. You are aligned. I trust without proof. I move without fear. Say it again. I trust without proof. I move without fear. And with that posture, manifestation is no longer a possibility. It is inevitable. Everything outside you will now reorganize to match the reality you have already become. That is the power of complete alignment. That is the mastery of the unseen. That is the art of trusting the invisible. You are ready. You are capable. You are steady. And now it's your turn. Move into life as the version of you who already knows. Act as the person who already embodies certainty. Stand unshakable in the unknown. I trust without proof. I move without fear. Say it one last time. I trust without proof. I move without fear. You have become the creator of your reality. Not tomorrow. Not later. Now. Today. In this moment. Stay aligned. Stay unshakable. And watch reality reorganize in your favor. In closing, now hear this clearly. You were never meant to see the whole path. You were meant to walk it anyway. Trust is not something you wait to feel. It is something you decide. Every time you stay aligned without evidence, you signal readiness. Every time you choose calm over panic, faith over fear, certainty over control, reality listens. This audiobook was not meant to inspire you once. It was meant to condition you daily. So here is your challenge. For the next 7 days, move as if it's already done. Speak as if it's inevitable. Choose as if it's unfolding now.